My single story began as a young child. I was fortunate to grow up in a middle class suburban home in Hacienda Heights, California, with my mother, father, and two brothers. As I started going to school, I quickly realized that I was different from my classmates. I was Hispanic. My classmates were primarily white. My best friend throughout elementary school was Jewish. There were no other Hispanic kids in our neighborhood. My mother was educated as a dentist in Mexico, but after she and my father married, they came to California. She never practiced dentistry, opting instead to stay home and raise us. Fortunately, my father was a very hard worker and was able to provide for us. He was born in Colorado. My grandparents, who had five sons, moved to Mexico in order to avoid the draft. My parents met in school. My father graduated with an engineering degree in botany. With two highly educated parents, education was always a priority in my home. The discussion was never whether or not we were going to college. It was always, what would we study? Even though my mother didn't speak very good English, she was amazing at helping us with homework and holding us accountable for good grades. Many in my mother's family in Mexico were well educated. Most were doctors. My mother always had a maid to clean their house. When we were young, my mother, brothers, and I would spend entire summers there. The maid would come daily. My mother also had a maid at home. Her sister in Mexico would find a maid who was willing to come to California to live with us. As I grew up, I developed a very white perspective on politics and the world. At least that was what I have been told. Early on in college, I remember getting bothered watching the news and looking at images of Mexicans illegally crossing the border or at the number of pregnant women crossing the border to give birth in the U.S. so that their children would be American citizens. I met my husband when I was 25 years old. He truly was different from anyone I had ever met before. I am sure I was an enigma to him as well. First of all, my husband is Hispanic. I had never even considered dating a Hispanic before. When we met, I had a 1991 Eddie Bauer Ford Explorer. I remember early on he asked me, "Who's Eddie and why is his name on your truck?" We were married 6 months after we met. He used to call me a white chick because of my beliefs and upbringing. His mother has a very different story than my mother. She literally came to the United States with nothing. She came to California when my husband was about 2 years old. My husband was born in Mexico. As a child, he grew up poor in East Los Angeles. There was a time when he was young that he missed an entire month of school because his mother couldn't afford to buy him shoes. When he shared this with me, I was absolutely stunned. I didn't know how to comprehend this. I just could not relate to his experiences. I had never personally known anyone who experienced anything like this before. Hearing his story absolutely opened my eyes to the fact that we don't all come from middle class neighborhoods. Some have very difficult situations and do whatever is necessary to survive. I am now an administrator at a largely Hispanic elementary school. Most of our families are very low income. Many students are at-risk English language learners. These kids absolutely have my heart. I do whatever I can to help them be successful. I do my best to inspire them, motivate them, stir their hearts, and cause them to dream. Through hard work and dedication, they can accomplish anything. I tell them, of course, they're going to college. They just need to decide what to study.